Celebrating nearly a century of scientific exploration, the West Texas Geological Society stands as a testament to the enduring spirit of geoscience. This year, members gathered to share their insights through engaging poster sessions and enlightening technical talks. Participants eagerly exchanged ideas during the panel discussions, exploring the latest discoveries and innovations in geology. Additionally, the core workshop provided hands-on experience, allowing attendees to dive deeper into practical applications of geological principles. If you missed any part of this enriching experience, don't worry. Sign up now to access the recordings available for an extended 6 months. Next year promises to be a landmark occasion as we gear up for the 100-year anniversary of the WTGS. As we reflect on the remarkable journey of the West Texas Geological Society, we look forward to a future filled with promise and innovation in geoscience. Join us in celebrating this milestone as we prepare to honor a century's worth of achievements and continue the quest for knowledge. This is the PBE Podcast Special with Mike Rains and Steve Melzer as we discuss carbon dioxide in the Permian Basin, the geology of this fluid when it goes supercritical and reacts with the rocks.
3, 2, 1, let's go! I'm the host of the PBE Podcast. We are live at WTGS 2025, which is the 99th year of the Society. We didn't go back that many years today with Mike Rains and Steve Melzer, but we certainly went back into the details of CO2, where it started, how it's evolved, and how it's now making an economic impact in multiple different ways than just enhancing oil recovery for the industry and for young minds in schools and the scholarships you talked about. And these, you guys are raising the next generation and teaching the next generation how they can learn from what you learned, learn from your experience, and apply it to new ideas that you guys see coming. And we have to do that. And investing back into them is a big deal. So we'll get into what dropped out for us. Give me an elevator pitch real quick. Who is Mike Rains? And then we'll go to Steve, and then I'm going to do some stay positive quotes.
Okay. All right, so I'm Mike Rains. I'm a geologist. I got my master's degree from University of Oklahoma. I got my undergrad from West Texas State University. Some people now call it West Texas A&M University. Let's see, I've been working in CO2 for probably 25 of my 30 years, maybe slightly more than that. Most of it in enhanced oil recovery, is the rest of it more recently in carbon capture projects. That's me in a nutshell.
Cool.
I'm Steve Melzer, a geological engineer. Grew up in Midland, came back, was gone for a while, came back, formed a family partnership with my dad and operated. We've done a variety of things in our family for years, but I got involved in CO2 in the 90s and learned from the masters, from the major professionals that knew how to do CO2. And now what we're doing is taking their knowledge and propagating that through our archive, through the new people that want to do CO2 and CO2 flooding and CO2 sequestration. We didn't mention the term CCUS, utilization and storage, which I love. Let's use the CO2 we capture, and let's make oil with it, low carbon oil with it. But anyway.
Yep. No, a lot dropped out of this show. A lot to talk about from this show. Let's start with some positive quotes, and then we'll do the dropouts.
Okay.
You're first. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh man, I can tell. It's got your name written all over it. I'll leave okay. Okay, we'll do this one. The world tries to define you by the mistakes of your past, but history defines you by how you responded, how you learned and improved, how you made amends, how you preserved, and what you accomplished afterward.
That's a pretty good one.
Is that right? It's right up your alley? Oh, I knew it was going to be. All right. Don't get stuck thinking that that your life can't or won't change for the better. Don't go through life focusing on your problems with your head down. Instead, keep your eyes open and your head up. Be open to new possibilities. Be kind to people. Take action. Believe that something great is coming your way. Maintain the hope. Believe in what's possible. That's kind of the CO2 story.
It really kind of is.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and for all the audience out there, everybody saw that was a random stop.
That was totally random.
We didn't pre-plan that.
We're going to do one for Steve now. Come on.
Stop.
Oh, this one. Look at that. I can read that one for sure.
Yeah.
While fear and worry can weaken or harden you, love transforms you and the people and situations around you.
Power of positive thinking.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that. We got to be positive. We got to protonate the world, man. We got to be positive. We got to be positive. And CO2 flooding is making positive impacts on production. I think it's making a positive impact for the future, for us to get the younger generation involved in it. You're getting business majors to understand it, how they can get involved in this. You're using AI to capture all that knowledge and wisdom of the 30 years of doing these conferences and how much vital information is in those short courses that a lot of people can't attend, money or time, whatever it is. You're allowing them to go back efficiently with the use of AI. This podcast had everything to do with, boots on the ground, how it's actually done, the risk we take, the men and women in the industry every day, trying to do better, trying to get more oil out of the ground. You guys did that, and now you're part of projects that are pushing the CO2 and utilizing the CO2 or storing the CO2 in new ways that nobody's ever seen. And what's that look like? And I get this vision of the Permian, and it's lighting up with these CO2 projects all over the place, well funded, well thought out, and supported by 30 years of history of doing it. I commend you guys. I really appreciated the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Troy. Yeah, and I think for the future, the thing that's different now is the enhanced credits that you get on the tax for the 45Q tax, which makes CO2 available for areas that it could never economically go to before. So now we have the opportunity to really expand where our low carbon oil will be coming from in the future. And a lot of the people are retiring, so having this researchable AI-based archive is how the next generation is going to be able to learn what to do and what to avoid in these CO2 floods.
Yeah. Welcome to the conception part of the PBE podcast, where we get to talk about, we rock it back, what we like to say, to where does it all come from? How did Steve Melzer, Mike Rains get to the point where we're doing a podcast about CO2, the use of CO2 in the Permian Basin, the geology of CO2. We'll start with you, Mike. Your resume, real quick, obviously a licensed professional geoscientist, headliner. Now it says number 1506. Is that in sequence? Are you the 1,506th geoscientist of Texas?
I believe that is correct. I started right when the year that they opened up the license, I started.
Okay. Certified Petroleum Geologist, the APG, Division of Professional Affairs with the APG, Certified Earth Scientist with SIPES, and over 30 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. I remember running into Midland, Texas as fast as I could in 2014, fresh from undergrad, and you were just Mike Rains at the WTGS. I mean, you were there immediately.
Good old days.
And it was awesome. I was like, who is Mike Rains? I mean, I got to I started meeting all these, characters that are at WTGS and the experience, and so CO2 was you got put into that right after a master's degree you're a Boomer Sooner?
Yes, that's true.
And so what year was it when you went right into a CO2 project?
Well, I was a summer intern in '95 with Texaco, and then later that summer they offered me a position. If your thesis were finished and you were graduated, we could offer you a job, but we can't really do that until you get done. I'd written maybe 3 pages all summer long, so I wrote 161 pages from then to October, and started at the end of October. And then about 6 months later, my mentor, Roger Cole, decided to take a position with Texaco in Houston, working on the Sichuan Basin in China.
Whoa.
So he left me in the lurch, so to speak, and I got dumped into the deep end, and one of the projects that was going on was a CO2 flood that was getting ready to start up. They needed somebody to finish up the last little bits of the geology that were still under duress there, not quite to the starting point. So I started right into CO2 basically as my second project at Texaco. And so that was 96.
Okay.
And then my first experience with meeting Steve was probably a year and a half or so later, 1998 or so,
no
at the
kidding.
CO2 conference here in Midland. And been working with the CO2 off and on ever since then, and with the CO2 conference more recently. But I've attended most of them since that time, and we'll talk some more about that here in a little bit. But
Cool.
yeah, CO2 right off the bat, before I'd
Now-
even had a year of experience.
In these fields, your first experience, were you going into a reservoir that was making a lot of CO2, and the idea was that we can capture that and put it back in the ground for enhanced oil, or they were bringing it in?
Bringing it in. In this case, it
Whoa.
was natural CO2 from Bravo Dome and McElmo Dome, pipelined across New Mexico and Colorado, and into Denver City. They have a big hub there, and then down to a joint that peels off and goes into New Mexico. And so those CO2 floods that I was working with are New Mexico and Colorado CO2 going through Texas and back into New Mexico and flooding from there. So this is a water flood in an old primary field that had been depleted. Had a big spike in the 70s for water flood.
Yep.
Production is on the decline now. It's on its last leg. So CO2 comes in to rescue the field, so to speak.
Tertiary.
Yeah, tertiary recovery. The magic elixir, as my friend Scott Wayner, who was my CO2 engineer at the time there, likes to call it. And the magic elixir brought the field back to life. We had another peak. And so ultimately you get another 10 to 15% of original oil in place out of that same thing after you've depleted with primary production,
Right.
and after water flood has run its course.
Yep. So the idea, just to circle back on that, is you drill a well, you get primary production, which is just kind of the natural pressures and fluid that it has to give. The first 10% maybe of production is primary, and secondary is the water flood that gets you to maybe 20 to 30.
Right.
And then tertiary and EOR, are those synonymous?
Tertiary is a more of a time frame or a phase, if you want to think about it like that. First phase, second phase, third phase, tertiary phase. And EOR is not just CO2. There are other things you can use like surfactants, and Steve, you might want to comment on other kinds of enhanced oil recovery, but that's what it means, is you're enhancing it beyond its original capabilities and beyond the secondary phase capabilities.
Okay, so secondary phase, is that EOR, enhanced oil recovery technology, water flooding, or is that not considered EOR?
From the nomenclature that developed originally, I think, and you can correct me if I'm getting this out of order or incorrect, Steve, but it was secondary recovery was the first technology that you could use, which was always water, because water was cheap and available. You could recycle the water that you already had, add some fresh water with it from somewhere, and keep your pressures up and keep the oil moving through the reservoir to your production wells. So that is a technology from, I don't know, what, the 30s maybe?
Right.
It goes back that far.
Yeah, so there was no need for anything else enhanced or tertiary, because we were all doing fine with that in the early days. So by the time it became obvious that you needed a third phase of enhancement to some of these projects, we're into the 60s, early 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, some of those. Go ahead, Steve.
You know, the general term for anything after primary recovery is advanced recovery,
Okay.
usually involving injection wells.
Okay.
And so tertiary would be, like you said, a time phase. You might do a secondary EOR project, which you do with chemicals, heat, you know, and steam flooding.
Sure.
Like SAG.
California, another example.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Steve Melzer, do you want to rock it back? How did it all begin?
Well, it was about 1994, and there was a DOE program, U.S. Department of Energy program, that wanted to enhance and recovery from oil reservoirs. And I got wind of it. I was doing some consulting work for a company out of La Jolla, California. And they said, why don't you look at that and see if we can redirect some of our Department of Defense research we were doing into the Department of Energy. And I said, well, that program fits West Texas really well. And I had just moved to West Texas. So I said, let's write up a white paper and see if we can rally the companies to get into the CO2 EOR that weren't already in it. And wrote a white paper for the Board of Regents at the University of Texas, and they liked it. And they said, why don't we start an organization out at the Center for Energy and Economic Diversification between Midland and Odessa? And I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. Let's get going. And they said, why don't you go out and run it? And I said, that's not what I had in mind. So anyway, I agreed to give them a few days, a few weeks, few hours, few years, turns out. And we got it going. And about that time, the majors, Shell, Mobil, Texaco, and we're saying, we're not going to do this forever in West Texas. We need to spend our money somewhere else. And we were all looking at each other and says, who's going to buy it? It's proprietary technology. And so we developed a conference and short courses to start educating the smaller companies about CO2 flooding.
Wow, that's where the conference came from.
Came from that idea.
Wow, that's great.
And I was just in the right place at the right time. I learned from the masters.
Certainly there must have been some influence, maybe that somebody was like, let's not do that. Let's just raise our own money. Let's keep it proprietary. Let's go do this ourselves. Why would we want to teach people and be competitive? We don't want competitors. But you guys went right in.
Oh, Troy, you're so young and naive. You have to think about what the majors were like back then. And I can only speak to my personal experience. But in the Texaco world, the things that we have out here are considered buffalo, elk, deer, rabbit. Texaco is hunting for elephants. And elephants are offshore projects, new exploration frontiers. They're looking for multi-billion barrel fields. And these are things that take a lot of upfront capital, and it takes a lot of investment ongoing to maintain a CO2 flood. But the corporate world that I'm aware of, and you might have some different views on that, but the things that you can just drill an offshore well one time, maybe you have 5 wells for a whole field, and you're making thousands and thousands of barrels a day in that one field, that was much more appealing to them in this economic time frame that we were talking about in the mid-90s.
So there was just take this proprietary information. Texaco wants nothing to do with it. Just go and do whatever you want with it.
Well, the reservoir engineering side of it was clearly that way. And some of the surface processing that they had developed, like amine systems for separating the CO2 out and all of that, was still quite proprietary as well. But yet they said, okay, let's open our books, and the management said, get with it. And so here we did. First short course we ever did, we called CO2 Flooding for Independence. And had to do it 4 times.
In 95.
In 95 and 96.
95, 96.
So it was popular because people wanted to understand it.
Right.
And then they saw the names associated with it, with Exxon, Mobil, Texaco, Shell, and they said, oh, wow, we can learn from them. So it was very popular. Really kick-started the whole thing.
Now, so a little bit back a little bit further. Where are you from?
Originally, I grew up in Midland.
No kidding. Was your dad out here in oil and gas, or grandpa's? And no kidding.
Grew up around it and went to Texas A&M and picked geological engineering as my major, which they don't have anymore, but it was just perfect for me. And then the oil business sucked at the time, pardon my language, but it did. And so I went off and got a master's in civil engineering at Purdue, and then went into service. I had a commission with the Air Force and spent 4 years in Albuquerque, and then they wanted me to stay, so I stayed 5 years there, and Dad and I got to talking during that latter part of that stint in Albuquerque. And
Los Alamos or something?
well, we were at Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, and we worked with Los Alamos and Sandia Labs and all the majors and the independent world of research, and that's usually all defense related.
Cool.
And anyway, I told him I was headed home to Midland, and Dad and I started a partnership. So I'm one of the few that didn't learn from a major directly by working for them.
Yeah.
But I sucked all that information out of them
Yeah.
when I was with the Center for Energy.
So from 95, conference gets started as like, we are going into the nuts and bolts of what we learned in CO2 floods and all this stuff. From 95 to today, what's the difference in the conference, like from a pure production standpoint to a technical science standpoint to now carbon capture, sequestration, utilization, right? What's that transition from 95 to today? What kind of major things do you see?
Well, originally it was all EOR, and we concentrated on that. But about that time frame we got started, people were talking about greenhouse gases. And I was still working part-time for the company in La Jolla, and one of my favorite guys that was running the seismic net around the world for earthquake detection and nuclear weapon detection was telling me that he was changing his job, overlooking the Capitol, and I couldn't believe I was hearing this, that he was going to work for a different part of the company and do research on sequestration. And I said, oh, what's that? And this was probably 96 on that order. And no, it was before that. It was 93. And I said, oh my gosh, that must be pretty exciting stuff. And so we started looking into it. And in 2002, we decided to create a separate event, talking to the Department of Energy, called Carbon Management Workshop. And it was one day before the CO2 conference for EOR. And then that sort of grew. It started to gain momentum. And the majors at the time said, we don't want any part of that. So we had a different set of sponsors for the sequestration side and different set for the EOR. Kind of kept
I remember being nervous to ask if I could go to this side of the extra one day, because that's not what we are about in the soil industry, and that's not something that we see as valuable to the future. But they did let me go. And at that time, the first time I got to go, though, I don't know if it was that one, but the time that I got to go attend, it was remote in from Midland with a TV system that was run out of the Permian Basin Graduate Center at that time. So
cool.
Now it's the Midland College PPDC building that's just here downtown.
And it was growing so in the 90s, late 90s, it was growing so fast we had to move out of the Center for Energy up between Midland and Odessa and move downtown. And then we incorporated the Permian Basin Graduate Center as part of it. And so we were busy running people back and forth, a block to handle the crowd. And it really was the hot thing to learn about at that time, the sequestration side of it. And a lot of the technology we're using in EOR was exactly what they needed for CO2 capture. And then what do they do with it when they capture it? So we had the reservoir technologies to help them with that too. So they sort of deny that today, that all that technology came from the oil and gas business, but it's pretty well true.
Wow. Cool. So there was actually a connection back in 95 when it first got kicked off, or was that 96?
Almost. It was a little later, 2002.
Oh, 2002.
We really got going.
That's right.
Yeah. We were watching it. Yeah. We were watching it earlier. And I recruited a guy out of Houston to help with that side of it. And he's still with us. And he's now our spy in Washington.
All right, before we get into the drill down segment, I would like to know all your career, when you get asked the question, what do you remember when you first got onto a lease that had the infrastructure and the CO2, like when you walked out there and you saw what was going on at the surface, trying to control the fluids and all that, what was your experience like?
For me, that was the biggest facility I'd ever been in. Coming from a little podunk town in the Texas Panhandle, I had never seen anything like that except in the movies. So it was huge. There were stacks and pipes running everywhere, giant fans for cooling,
Whoa.
pipelines coming in and out, wellheads everywhere. It was just
Whoa.
almost overwhelming. It was
Had to
so
have
big.
been. Yeah.
And we had to watch it when we started doing field trips to not to intimidate these new guys that were going to come into the
Yeah.
business.
I don't want to be a
So you
part
don't
of
want to, they want to be part of that.
Yeah.
And,
I could see that happening. Yeah. And
That's the engineering problem. For me, on the geoscience side, that's not a problem. It's just a big, crazy thing that's out here. So it's not going to impact my work, just my driving around and my being out in the field. That's all.
wow. And how much pressure are we talking about? Like with these systems, what do they get to?
well, the very typical surface pressure will be well over 1,000 psi,
Wow.
maybe 2,000 psi. And the good news is CO2 is not explosive. It's actually retardant, thank goodness. But it still can be dangerous.
Yeah.
There were some early accidents. I think they were H2S mostly out here. A few deaths with ARCO in I guess it was a Willard unit, and they had a calm night, and they had a rupture on a seal, and it collected in a low spot, and that's been the only thing related to CO2, and I think that was H2S.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
they killed him, but and we've not had a serious accident, take a life loss accident with
Wow.
CO2 EOR in all the years we've been doing it, which is now close to 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And how much oil is being made today under CO2 floods?
In the Permian Basin alone, we're right at 190,000 barrels a day. And, you know, at one time, this is a statistic that I recently came up with looking at the production data from the Permian Basin, and we were at one time 28% of the total oil production in the Permian Basin. That was about 2007. And now here comes the horizontals.
Yeah.
And now we've dropped that number down to 5% of the total production, but without really declining much. These
Wow.
floods last a long time, but what's happened, of course, is the denominator from the shale revolution has changed that
Yeah.
percentage.
Right. Walk me through a quick, just basic understanding, CO2 flooding into the reservoir and under pressure, and then the ideas that we have of what it's actually doing in the reservoir to enhance the oil recovery. Can we simplify that?
Well, the first thing to say is that when we water flooded, water and oil don't mix. And so water will push oil. You know, if it's in its way, it's going to push it. And so we get another, as you said earlier, about 20 to 25% of the oil in place with a water flood, but it bypasses a lot of oil. The thing that CO2 does is it mixes with the oil and changes its property. It'll actually strip the oil off a rock. We've drilled behind our flood fronts with CO2. We've drilled behind them, and we cleaned the rock up.
Oh,
So
so you like had a core, then flooded it, took another core, and it was
it was gone. You know, the
big
oil.
oil
It's
slick.
been stripped away.
That's cool.
Now, the thing, though, is that it tends to sweep, the reservoir sweep a smaller volume than the water did, about half as much.
Huh.
And so we've got to create some way to spread it out again. And water and CO2 are usually mixed. We call it wagging, water alternating gas.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is spread it back out. And it was worked pretty well.
Huh. So by adding water, so does the CO2 carbonate the water then? That the water component of that gets carbonated with CO2?
We've tried that, and it turns out that all you're doing is creating corrosion in your tubulars.
Carbonic acid.
Yeah, carbonic
Goes
acid.
crazy.
And so we tend to slug them. And out in the reservoir now, they will mix.
It's happening.
Yeah.
But that carbonic acid's opening up porosity, permeability. It's doing things out in reservoir. You're not.
But it's a bit of a misnomer. We don't do much dissolution of the rock. We really don't. Whatever we do is really close, thin, next to the wellbore. It dilutes to a very large degree very quickly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so in this WAG process, you should think about it like slugs. So we have a slug of CO2 that goes out, and it's pushed behind by water, and then that's pushed behind by the next slug of CO2. So they're in their own phases, and they do have the interactions at the surface and things. But as far as for what they're doing out in the reservoir, what they're interacting with the rock and the fluid, it's kind of in phases.
Yeah.
And this water alternating gas process.
Yeah, because the CO2 is going to be somewhat immiscible to the water, right? It doesn't want to get into the water depending on its chemical makeup, right? If it has different.
That's one of the things that you have to concern yourself with in the reservoir, is to make sure you have your conditions right where that will be miscible, where it will mix with the fluids in the reservoir. So if you have too low a pressure for the temperature that you're at, then they are going to segregate and separate.
Whoa.
But you balance things out, you get the pressures up to the appropriate, what we call minimum miscibility pressure, or MMP.
MMP, yeah, I saw that.
If you see that, that's what they're
Minimum.
talking about, getting that pressure right for that temperature to mix with that oil. And just because
Wow.
you have a same depth range and the same even formation that you might be in, that doesn't mean that your MMP is going to be the same in every
Yikes.
field. You have to test it.
Wow.
Go
Now,
ahead.
this miscibility is a big deal. The interesting thing about CO2 is we all think of it as a gas,
Yeah.
because that's what it is in the air and at low pressure. We put it in the reservoir at 2,000 psi or 1,500 psi.
It's getting
dense.
super critical. Yeah.
It's dense.
Yeah.
And it's like oil, basically the same density as oil, but it still has
Whoa.
gas viscosity. And so if we don't mix it with water, it'll shoot through to the producing wells from the injectors a little too quickly.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
sweep efficiency is too small. So that's where that miscibility comes in. Now it mixes with the oil and it changes the viscosity of the combined mixture. And now it sweeps more like water would in a reservoir.
Yeah, and then that's another benefit of the WAG, is that when you switch to the water, you don't have that tendency for the CO2 to self-focus and to go where the easiest path is, because now the water is blocking that path.
Ah.
So the CO2 has to go up and around somewhere else.
Yeah. Whoa. Starts playing games with the stuff that's stuck, right?
Yes.
Starts
Exactly.
to mix in with that. Now, miscibility and interfacial tension, they're different. Interfacial tension is the ability for the oil to be stuck to the rock, essentially.
Yeah, think about it as the adverse liking of water and oil together. Like the spaghetti pot. You got the water, you pour the oil on top, and that oil clumps to itself, and it's not going to intermix with that water. So that how sharp that edge of the bubble is, you can think about that as like an interfacial tension analog.
Okay. So then when CO2 goes miscible into the hydrocarbon component in that environment, it changes its
It's teaching.
interfacial tension, and it wants to now move because it's changed its density, it's changed its the whole thing's changed. Right?
Yeah, it's changing that property of the oil so that it actually loosens it from the rock. There's this thing we call wettability, and in carbonates in particular, the oil will stick to the rock. It displaces the water off of it, and we can go into that if you'd like in detail, but the CO2 then just basically sweeps that oil off of that rock because it's changing that interfacial tension with the oil in the rock. Water
Right.
won't do that.
Water doesn't suck into the oil component, but CO2 will actually go in and be a part of its hydrogen bonds and van der Waals and all that stuff. It starts.
You end up with a whole new fluid at the end. It's not CO2 and oil. It's the CO2 and oil mixture together as one.
But it separates again out at the tanks at the surface when it gets to ambient temperature and pressure. The CO2 will start to.
It starts to separate out.
Wow.
There is a component of the CO2 that's in the oil when it comes to the surface, but if you let it set, dwell there, it'll separate out.
When you have a way to
That
capture.
oil will shrink because it's like gas in oil, the same thing. It just
Wow.
takes, you can stir it up and separate the two,
Yeah.
sell the oil and sell the gas. Although we recycle that CO2.
Yeah.
And with the gas separation, there's different technologies like amine systems, which are like a chemical sort of system, and there's membrane systems that separate certain components of the gas from the CO2.
Huh.
But even with both of these systems, there are some components of the gas, like methane, that are hard to get out of the CO2. They're too close in size and chemical characteristics. So
Wow.
you have a continuing mix as that CO2 gets recycled again of a little bit of methane still left in it, but you can capture basically all of that methane CO2 combination, and then the rest of the methane and higher component gases that you've been able to get out, and sell those separately, and then recycle your CO2
Plus a little bit of methane.
plus a little bit of methane.
And sometimes nitrogen as well.
Huh.
If the reservoir has nitrogen in it, it'll come with it, and that's hard to separate out.
So
We've
you-
actually had a couple of projects that had a nitrogen rejection system that they had to put in, but it's very uncommon. But
Interesting. Primarily carbonates is where you spent most of your time, or sandstones, shales. I mean,
I haven't. We can talk about shells here in a little bit,
Yeah.
but I have been mostly in carbonate systems. But I think overall it's probably about half and half, sands versus carbonates.
it just seems to work better in carbonates because carbonates are oftentimes oil wet, so there's more target. In a sandstone, there's a few exceptions to that, but Arcos, for example, is an exception. Arcos sands, but they typically are water wet. So the remaining oil after the water flood
not much.
is not enough sometimes to make a project successful.
Given how expensive CO2 is when you're buying it from
Yeah.
natural sources, which is another caveat we'll talk about here in a minute.
Cool.
But getting back to these old floods in the 1980s, where all that natural CO2 is coming from New Mexico and Colorado.
Yeah.
Those are expensive CO2 molecules. So
They're producing it from a subsurface reservoir that is 90% CO2.
higher.
Really? It's just,
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
that-
wells flowed forever.
In the case
Because they were
of Bravo Dome, for example, which is in northeast New Mexico, that's food grade CO2 that they're producing out of there. As a matter of fact, one of the companies that has property there is Reliant Energy.
huh,
They provide CO2 for bottled Cokes and other
no
other
kidding.
beverages.
Straight from the
Bravo
wellhead.
Dome.
Sheesh. That's pretty amazing. Food grade CO2.
Exactly.
Huh. They cultivate the plants with CO2. Is that what they're doing with the CO2? What does that mean? Food grade CO2.
Food grade means you're putting it in Coca-Cola, Pepsi,
Oh, okay.
7-Up. You're packing meat with it in, make dry ice from it and
Got
pack
it.
meat in it and fish in it. So
Wow. And that stuff's expensive. How much CO2 is in the Permian just naturally, like a Bravo Dome type thing? Has there been any natural great CO2 source?
In the south part of the Permian Basin, we have
Really?
this Ouachita overthrust.
Yeah.
And as you get close to that thrustal zone, you will find CO2 with the methane that's there. And so the very first CO2 we used in the Permian Basin that went to the Sac Rock flood and to North Cross, near, what's that town? Anyway, we piped it up there, and that was 1972 and 3,
Whoa.
believe it or not. And they had taken that CO2 out of the natural gas to sell the natural gas and captured the CO2, compressed it, sent it on up
Wow.
to Sac Rock.
So
That's
the
where that started.
Yeah, the first anthropogenic CO2 supply is down there in the Val Verde Basin.
Whoa. And it's anthropogenic supply because it's a byproduct of oil and gas operations? So that qualifies as...
Yes.
Wow.
But anthropogenic can be from any human industrial source. It
Right.
can be
Oh,
cement plants or...
Yeah, I always think
fertilizer.
of this building, right, exhausts, stuff
Kind of
like
an interesting note, when we were making sure we were going to get credit for anthropogenic CO2, this was back in the early days of what we'll talk about, 45Q tax credit here.
Yeah.
There were the enviros that said, no, we're not going to let you do that. And I said, well, are you interested in the emissions being reduced? Or are you interested in antagonizing oil and gas? And we got it passed. He said, if it's going into the atmosphere and you go to the trouble of capturing it, it's anthropogenic CO2.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty impressive. Now you could take advantage of those tax credits, right?
You can.
Right.
Exactly.
Because it qualifies. I didn't think that would qualify, but it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're capturing it and not letting it vent. You're not,
Right.
right?
That's right. Keeping it out of the atmosphere.
Wow. And reusing the CO2 in the reservoir and it coming back and reusing it, is that all part of the same calculations for the credits? You're keeping track of?
You don't get to count it the second and third and fourth time.
Okay.
That's a good thing. We should probably try to get that.
Yeah.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
But the CO2, as you're pumping it back in and getting it to increase the oil recovery, it gets lost in some of that, right? You start losing some of that recovery to the reservoir, doesn't it?
To the reservoir. Yes, it's sequestered into the reservoir. You want to expand on that, Steve?
Yeah, it gets trapped in there, water trapped, oil trapped, in corners of the reservoir.
You think it
Dead-end
crystallizes?
channels, for example, dead end pores. It goes in there, pops some of the oil or water out, and a bunch of that
Stays.
CO2 is still in there.
Sure.
And then the other way to think about this, and this is a myth that we've had to fight for 15 years or so, is that when we buy CO2, we bring it to the field, and then we recycle. If you call that a closed loop, which is pretty close to being, what we bought is sequestered in the reservoir when we're done.
Yeah.
And so we've had to tell people, there's an old saying that we only store half of what we inject. Well, we inject a lot of recycled CO2, so you're making the denominator very big, and then what we buy is what's stored. And so we've done a bunch of studies. Sac Rock, we did a big study on Sac Rock with the Shell people, and they had 98% storage when they went
Whoa.
through this whole process back in about 2010 or 12.
Whoa.
Yeah. And most of the 2% remaining is from things like maintenance on pipes where you have to break a seal somewhere and
Yeah.
fix something.
Whoa. How about that? Wow. Okay. How about the drill down into the conference itself? 30-year history of this conference, right?
Right. We started it as a nonprofit. It was actually part of the UTPB system at
Oh, cool.
the University of Texas system.
Your
University of
old,
Lands was involved.
Yeah, your old alma mater.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob Trenum talks about
In
that.
fact, it was the Board of Regents that got it started, or at least the conference started. And we evolved from, probably 100 people in the first short course, 90 or 100, to today it's about 300
Wow.
on average. And it's seen some cycles, but not too much. And the idea was it was a nonprofit, and we had to decide how to distribute any net revenues we would make.
Yeah.
Hopefully making them, and we did. Every year we made net revenues, and we decided to invest in young people, scholarships.
Yeah.
We did that through the SPE, Society of Petroleum Engineers, and they got half of the first year net profits, and,
Wow.
and UTPB got the other half.
Oh, cool.
And then we've changed that formula over the years. We're actually working with the business department now at UTPB, and
Huh.
because so much of this is business related now.
Yeah, understanding the tax credits versus revenue and all that
Exactly. And
biz.
you got to be a businessman in this business anymore. We like to think we're technologists, but you better know the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, you got to make more oil with what you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're 30 years into it, and we have made $1.8 million
Whoa.
in net revenues,
Wow.
and about half of that's been scholarships.
Wow.
So a lot of tech kids
Texas Tech.
and a lot of UTPB, Midland College has got scholarships. San Angelo, we've had them. We try to keep it West Texas. The whole idea is if you go to UT Austin or A&M or Oklahoma, we may not get you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need you.
Speaking about that, how much of the Permian, and how much of this has been taken out of the Permian?
How much oil or how much?
How much of the CO2 breakthrough, the technological breakthroughs have
Great question.
expanded into other parts of the world?
It's really hard to measure that. We like to think, because all of our presentations, with very few exceptions, are public, and they're on the website. We actually have an archive going back to 2000,
Wow.
and we'll get into that in a minute with the AI and trying to
Yeah.
help people find stuff. But that is widely used. We kind of keep the metrics on downloads on our website, and it's grown over the years. And I think it'll grow dramatically this year because we've had a gal do the AI on summarizing all of those presentations and short courses and make it easier to find material. Like if you have a question, and we were talking about this earlier today, let's say you worried about corrosion on your tubular.
Yeah.
What do we know about that? And you can go into some of these presentations, especially in the short courses, and see people that talked about how they fought the corrosion.
So you guys have on the website kind of a ask me a question of what you're looking for, and AI is right there on the website, or how does that work?
Well, we're just doing it.
Okay.
And
In
Internally.
progress.
Yeah. She's able to, or whoever's doing that is able to kind of do that kind of thing, and maybe one day it can be
Yeah, it
out
should
there.
be really
One
quick.
day soon.
Yeah, one day
Cool.
soon, yeah.
When is the next conference?
It's December. And we're going to have a field trip on Monday afternoon, the 8th of December, and you'll get a kick out of this. There are 2 projects in West Texas now, in Ector County, believe it or not, that are over $700 million projects.
Jeez.
One of them is capturing CO2 out of the atmosphere,
Whoa.
the direct air capture by Oxy. The other is capturing their emission stream off their vent at the cement plant out on the Cap Rock on I-20.
And there's enough CO2 coming off that you can reuse?
It's pretty amazing that something like that would make enough CO2 to
Yeah,
be able to
it's a
capture.
lot of moving gas. And believe it or not, that project on the cement plant is going to take that CO2 and make low carbon cement with it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they think they can compete against about anybody when they make a low carbon cement. We're going to visit that site. It's
Cool.
impressive to drive by. They have a huge tower, $700 million project.
Golly. And they're going to go through how they actually get the CO2 out and separate it, and you get to walk through all that? That's part of the field trip?
We're hoping, yeah, they haven't fully committed, but we're close.
Cool.
And
That's December 8th?
December the 8th.
Yep. Conferences.
Right there. From the 8th, that's the Monday, right? And then, well, you're the leader of this. I'll let you talk about that.
And then the 9, 10, and the morning of the 11th.
Okay.
We'll be going right here in this facility in the Bush Center. And we'll go through a lot of things, but one thing I'm working on right now is having the Wyoming people come down. And we've got the head of their Enhanced Oil Recovery Institute, their head of their Science and Engineering group out of Laramie, and we've got their superintendent of the Oil and Gas Commission coming, and they're going to talk about how they work together to stimulate more EOR in Wyoming.
Nice.
So much so they had a big hand in getting Senator Barrasso to sponsor this parity on the 45Q for EOR versus deep saline injection CO2. And pulled that off this May.
So what Steve's talking about there is that when the original 45Q passed, they had two separate amounts. EOR had a lower dollar figure.
Yep, because you're making oil with it, so
Right.
it kind of offsetted the
And
idea.
the sequestration in saline aquifers had a higher value to it.
But
So
this administration said, well, wait a minute, you're using the CO2 for good for the economy. Why are you
Discounted.
detrimentally punishing that? And so now what we're seeing, and this is just happening now, we're seeing some companies that were going to inject it as a waste into a deep saline aquifer.
Uh-huh.
Say, wait a minute, we're going to use it for EOR. And,
Whoa.
and so we'll see some more of that happening, and that's part of the growth that you want us to talk about here in a minute of where we think we're going with this whole CO2 world.
Wow, nice. Yeah, let's get into that. What are we at? We're almost 6:30, so 30 minutes left. The drill down segment. Anything else you want to drill down into with the conference?
Well, let's think. The parties that are involved in the floods now have moved from the majors to the independents, and some of them are brand new.
Whoa.
Flooding in general.
Wow.
Yeah. And they've had to learn some lessons.
Uh-huh.
And so part of our goal is to be the educator to help them with that. That's why we're doing this AI and the archive access that we're trying to give. There's internationally too. There's an awful lot of emphasis being placed on CO2 capture around the world. And many of them are like Norway's. They're probably getting close to Canada, a little bit behind us, I think, and then China's working on it too. They just don't have the reservoirs that we've got to put CO2 into. So they're busy working on EVs and everything else, trying to de-emphasize oil and gas because it's all imported, or most of it is imported
Right.
for them. But we have, believe it or not, we got a China company coming and going to be a platinum sponsor in our conference. I just talking to them this week, and here they come. So they want to grow their market, and they want to grow it in the U.S.
Sure.
We'll see. I actually got DOE's approval to do that, so I was worried about that.
Yeah, I was surprised that did happen. Very cool. Okay. Well, the drill down is that the conference is coming up, the 30th annual CO2.
31st.
31st.
Yes.
This will be the 31st annual CO2 conference. Cool. December 8th, 9th, 10th, and half of the 11th.
Correct.
All righty. Very cool. Well, let's get into the completion segment of the PBE podcast, which is going to be, where is it all going from here? How is there's incentives to do more CO2 work because of the tax credit, right? And that makes sense, but there's some rules there. Anthropogenic CO2, and using that is where you actually get the credits from. If you naturally make CO2 from a reservoir and you split that off as a byproduct, and you sell the gas, sell the oil, get rid of your brine, or maybe you WAG the CO2, is that do you get carbon credits for that?
You do. The capture does. And it's an interesting story on why the capture gets it and not the injector. This is kind of a bipartisan deal, but when you're trying to get legislation, you better think about it bipartisan wise. Wow. And the Enviros did not want to help the oil and gas industry. And we were the ones with the technology, so we were, obviously standing in line first for any help we could get. And so we said, well, the capture gets it. That's the expensive part, is putting in the equipment to capture the CO2 off of a vent stack or wherever. And so what we said was that the relationship between the injecting company, the transporting company, and the capturing company would all be a private contract. And that's how it's working out now.
Okay. kind of let the business kind of behind the curtain kind of figure it out.
Right.
Everyone's, okay.
And everyone has their role. It doesn't have to be just one person who captures the CO2, handles the CO2, moves the CO2 to its final destination, and injects it. So that can be now multiple parties, which opens it up to a lot more business opportunity for individual segments of that to work out.
And this last legislation actually can take those credits. If, let's say the capturing company is a utility. They can take that. If they can't use the tax credit, they can actually sell those to somebody else. And that was a neat feature. 'Cause now it's real money.
They're exchanging
You
it.
can exchange it.
Yes, as opposed to before where if you had a tax bill of $30 million, that's the maximum benefit you could get.
It's 30 million.
Yeah, that's just an example. You know?
Oh, okay.
Say whatever your tax liability was, that was your cap.
Got it.
So if you made 60, but you could only use 30 of it,
Yeah.
you lost 30 of it.
And
Okay.
considering the fact this is a lot of equipment to do all of that
Right.
capture, they
30
probably
million.
don't have a tax liability while they're busy buying that equipment, but now they can sell that tax offset to somebody like Microsoft who's making a lot of money right now, or to
Huh.
Amazon or whoever.
Yeah.
And you'll find that in that DAC project in West Odessa, guess who's in the middle of that?
No
It's
kidding.
those companies.
No kidding. So these things are actually exchanging. Wow.
Pretty amazing how the whole system works when it's talking to each other.
What kind of numbers are we talking about per carbon credit right now?
The $85 a metric ton,
Okay.
and a lot of our countries talks in MCF.
Right.
Yeah,
Thinking like,
trying to
okay, how
convert. That ends, all the time. And one of the favorite conversion factors I use is 1 million tons a year is like 50 million cubic feet a day
Whoa.
of CO2. So
That's-
55 times 8.5 is, what's that? About $4. Oh, $4 or $5 an MCF. That's how big that tax credit is.
You converted,
Yeah.
a certain amount of CO2 production back into MCF equivalent? Is that what you just did?
And then applied the dollar figure from the per metric ton credit.
Yeah, if you do the actual, 19.25 MCF per metric ton.
Okay, 19.25, I can stick there. So call it
Call it.
20 MCF of CO2, one carbon credit. That's $85. Whoa. And you got operators that are making 5,000 MCF of CO2 a day? 50 million, what did you
Like
say?
the DAC project's 25 million cubic feet a day. Yeah, so it's some serious money there.
It's 25 million a day is divided by 1,000 to get to MCF, right? You're saying 2,500 MCF, is that what that is a day?
You're
2,500?
thinking cubic feet.
Yeah,
He's talking MCF already. 1,000 cubic feet.
yeah, I'm talking MCF. So well, let's do that math if we can really quickly. It's actually 25 million cubic feet a day, so that'd be 25,000 MCF a day.
Wow. Wow.
And-
Holy smokes. And every 20 is $85 credit.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And it's $1 billion project to put in.
I mean, it seems like you have the ability to run those economics at $85 a credit.
Well, that's challenging for direct air capture, I can promise you. They actually get more than $85 a day.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they've got a special deal. I think it's 170
Whoa. Doubled.
per metric ton, yeah. And Oxy's planning on doing a lot more of them. We'll see.
If you're getting $170 a credit and you could basically borrow against that, because isn't there the 45Q deal is like a 12-year projecting, so yeah, you got this business major that's going, okay, I got 12 years of doing these carbon credit offsets, gas is coming, let's,
Got to pay for everything in those 12 years and get my profit margin, whatever that is, in that 12 years. And anything else above that is gravy or bonus.
Yeah, it's got to be a challenge. But Oxy's putting this carbon credit thing against the books of Oxy, right? They're going, all right, our taxes this year are going to be crazy. This is a $30 million write-off, or a $50 million write-off, or a $1 billion write-off over 10 years.
I actually don't know exactly what percentage they have. I know that some of these IT companies have a bunch of that too. So
Wow.
yeah, they don't get it all.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. So the completion part of this show, the future of CO2, where it's come from in your experience, watching this happen, hands-on, boots on the ground, doing it, seeing it works, knowing it has a future for EOR, and now this whole money ability to finance through carbon capture and bring in new money for new projects. I mean, where do you guys see the Permian Basin in 10, 15 years and the CO2 hubs, or what is it going to look like?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, but one of the companies that wanted to come to Ector County is another company, not one of the two I mentioned. And they go to the Odessa Chamber, and the Chamber says, oh my gosh, a third project. We ought to become a CO2 hub of the world, you know. And then the guy fortunately knew we had a conference, and he said, you ought to go talk to the conference people because we're already doing that. And so sure enough, we're teaming up with them this year. We're going to Odessa Chamber to get Oxy to brief us on the DAC project in West Odessa. And so we in the Permian have a lot of reservoir opportunity, not only from the conventional reservoirs where all the activity's been to date, but think about all the shales that we're going to develop and depressure, because that's all primary production. There's no injection going on back into those reservoirs. And so you look at how much pore space we can repressure. All we need is the CO2.
And we even have a third target type, and that's residual oil zones, or ROZs.
Yeah, the ROZ.
Yeah, which are, for people who don't know what the ROZ is, it's a lower saturation, oil saturation section that's below the main pay. That's the most basic definition I've come up with.
And by hitting it with CO2, changing interfacial tension, making that stuck oil lighter, that ROZ will be economic. That flow of a lot of water, but there's enough oil that comes with it.
Yeah,
Right.
the economic part depends on, in large part, what is your cost of CO2. And if your CO2 is financed by tax credits, or you're able to buy it for something below market price, then that opens up things that before would not have been economic for you, and you would have lost money on. So we have those ROZs, we have the future for the shale, and we have depleted conventional fields. Exactly.
And even think about the old gas fields, that are depleted. Out in the deep Delaware, we can fill those back up too. So there's a lot of opportunity out there.
The infrastructure to get the CO2 to move to all these places. We have the Valverde Basin that's kind of given us some anthropogenic CO2 to work with, and then you got the big pipelines coming out of New Mexico. Is that really it? And then you got some local processes like cement factories and stuff that are making it. Maybe you can suck the CO2 off of them, take it out of the air. That's really it for a source of CO2?
Yeah, and we could bring in AI service centers, natural gas and the economics of capturing that CO2 off the
exhaust
power required. Oh man, you're talking about big business, and they think many of them think they can do that all with solar and wind and batteries, I guess, but the one in Abilene, I think there's plans for natural gas fired power for that.
Yeah,
that's a big project too.
They need reliability and constant supply. They can't afford to have 4 days of cloudy weather in a row and lose their systems.
And you can capture the CO2 from the exhaust of all that putting it back in reservoir and doing things there. So how about the pipelines of CO2? Is it kind of all over, like if you looked at the Permian Basin, does it look kind of like interstates?
Not quite that thick,
Okay.
but
It's pretty good.
I'll let you talk to that.
It's a real advantage out here because we do have that network, and it's underutilized now. A lot
Whoa.
of our projects, are on decline now, and so I think the Cortez pipeline from McElmo Dome to Denver City is now about half utilized.
So that's Four Corners area,
Oh, wow.
all across New Mexico, kind of a 45-ish degree angle. Ends up in Denver City,
Uh-huh.
and then straight down center of the Central Basin,
Whoa.
a
hit.
leg off to the southwest, a main leg off to the northeast towards Sac Rock,
Wow.
couple crossbars.
Southern Utes in southern Utah or southern Colorado have just done a deal with Kinder Morgan, and they capture the CO2 off of a plant up there, put it into Cortez pipeline, and down it's going to come. So that's probably another 25 million cubic feet a day that will come in.
Every cubic feet that's in the infrastructure today is considered anthropogenic CO2 or no?
No, most of it I think is naturally occurring
CO
from one of the CO2.
being bought and brought in to enhance oil reservoirs.
Right.
And you don't get a tax credit for that.
Right.
So
So how do you get anthropogenic, pipeline that's sharing space with non-anthropogenic?
it's not a big deal. If you know what's going in and you got a project that's doing the monitoring of that stored CO2, it's molecule for molecule.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be.
Okay.
So it's just an accounting system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's
All you need is agreement with the pipeline carrier to take your gas.
okay.
There was a time when I argued with some enviros about this. I said, you don't want to have to build a dedicated pipeline every time you build a capture plant.
Right.
And so
Yeah, it killed the economics on the
Yeah,
whole
it
thing,
killed it.
right? Wow. How about the gas? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially when you have a network that's already set up and you could lay a couple of miles to tie into something, or you could fight 5,000 landowners between you and your project destination. And no one really wants new pipelines going across their land in general. So anytime you can use existing infrastructure, you have a much greater chance of success and an overall better project, in my opinion, anyway.
there's a whole number of ethanol plants in the Midwest, and they have CO2 emissions from that process, and they wanted to get credit for that. And so they're all small. They're generally 10 or 15 million cubic feet a day. And so they gathered up and said, let's collect all that CO2 off these ethanol plants and ship it off to a place we can put it in the ground. That one of them was North Dakota, one of them was Illinois. And the pipelines ran into a difficult barrier to get across for the reasons Mike mentioned.
Yeah.
And those aren't dead, but they're on life support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. So the future looks different than the past. The past was about EOR and having places where you can enhance oil recovery, but now the future looks like you can justify moving a lot of CO2 into areas that it just needs to go. It needs to be sequestered. And now you got all these potential pipelines going in there, and these old fields that were left for dead. You can now use those well bores to accomplish that and raise money and build projects and create jobs and keep the Permian thumping.
And provide energy for everybody, and lower carbon energy than some other sources, some native primary production oil somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, low carbon oil.
Yeah, that's what came to my head was this idea of zero carbon oil production.
Yeah. There is actually even some projects, I'll let you talk about it.
Well, this idea that we can effectively make economic a very inefficient CO2 flood. You're storing more CO2 than you'd like to store.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
That's a good
ends
thing.
up maybe even providing another cash flow.
Right.
If we can get the voluntary market to say that's good. This, Europe's got these rules now about airlines flying in, and they want to use zero carbon fuel. And there's a whole lot of synthetic, what they call it, SAF, I think, air fuel. And so we would love to get low carbon EOR oil as part of that.
Huh.
But there's a bunch of people working on that idea. Flying into Brussels, I don't know how they're justifying all of this over there, because how do you block airlines from coming in? But no doubt they've got some tax advantages, maybe no landing fees if you bring in expensive synthetic air fuel. I don't know. It's crazy. The world has changed.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Huh. All right.
When it comes to enhanced oil recovery, I think the change is for the better, because you can get this CO2 that costs you a lot less as an operator than what it would to buy naturally occurring CO2 and pipe it down to the Permian Basin. So all of these lower quality and lower oil saturation amounts become, and low pressure areas, all become potential enhanced oil recovery projects now.
Yeah. So you effectively getting paid, or you're getting a discounted CO2 price for less efficient production.
Wow. Cool. All right. The completion part of the show. What do you guys think? Anything else to add?
The conference itself, we've got a website for it.
Okay.
You can sign up for registration is live now, and you can sign up for a day, 2 days, 3 days. There's a package for all 3 days. We sell the field trips separately for a variety of reasons, because you have a limited number of seats, and we want to be sure that if you're going to go on the field trip, you buy a ticket so we can save you a seat. And I think it's going to be really popular this year, because I could imagine that seeing a $1.7 billion set of investments is something that you don't see every day.
Yeah, that would be really
Make
cool.
my first field trip out to the CO2 plant look like Johnny goes to the local grocery store or something.
Oxy's got a parking lot at that project of 170 cars.
Jeez.
Can you imagine? How
Wow.
big the thing is?
Yeah.
We drove by that a year and a half ago. We drove by it. I go, whoa. Just
Yeah.
a lot of people working out there.
The only other thing that I want to reemphasize that we've already kind of hinted at is that people can sign up on the website for free to get a membership to the website, and then they can get access to these AI tools that we were hinting
Cool.
at earlier. And those AI tools have built a 1 or 2 page summary for each of the short courses and each of the presentations,
Cool.
and have they already indexed that, or we're working on the index?
Indexing is coming, yeah.
So
Think of it as we were talking earlier, it's like the index at the back of a textbook.
Yep.
That's what we're trying to do with AI. And so you can go directly to the chapter or the presentation that addresses your question.
Wow.
So in
cool.
Steve's example, like if you're interested in what kind of corrosion experience have people had,
Yeah.
you can type in corrosion, and the AI will bring back, here are however many, 5, 10, 15 presentations or short courses that relate to that question you just asked me.
Okay.
And it's real world experience. That's one thing our conferences emphasize from the get-go is let's talk about case histories and best
Yeah.
practices. Let's don't talk about models.
Yeah, these are boots on the ground, gloves on the pipe kind of people here for reservoir side and for the surface side.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, you guys' careers and your experience, like I just would love to just go flash through like a 20-minute video of just all those views you have in your head and what you've seen, and Yeah, the field is amazing. I love, going out there. Nothing like what you explained. Like it's usually a gun barrel, maybe a heater treater. Heater's not even on. They're just pressurizing and some surface equipment and valves and a chem ray. Like it's fascinating, and how it works, and it's separating, and you're venting off what gas comes out, but you guys, when I think of CO2 flooding and the infrastructure, it blows me away. Yeah, I could see people get overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's not just the infrastructure, it's handling the reservoir as well. And you really need a team of experts, from the field guy that's checking the meters, to the foreman, to the geologist, to the engineers, to the reservoir side of the engineering. You need it all together, management too, to really follow what's going on with the CO2 flood, make sure that everything is working the way it should. Because we talked about this preferential flow paths that CO2 develops. It's real easy for a flow path like that to get started, and you don't notice that it's not sweeping as efficiently as it used to. And the more it goes through there, the less spread out it gets, the more focused it becomes, the less efficient it is. Which in a regular EOR flood, that's bad news.
Yeah.
So that's when you have to do the interventions, the water, cement plugs, polymers, whatever it is that you need to do to make that CO2 go where you want. And now with some of these sequestration options, that may not necessarily be a bad thing, but you still don't want to just pump CO2 through and recompress it, use all that electricity to cycle it again and again and again, because every time you do that, you're losing efficiency.
Yeah.
Using energy. The other thing
Energy.
that I wanted to mention was that probably half of the scholarships that we've provided have gone to people that are now drilling and fracking experts.
Wow.
And understandably, because now we're making 6.5 million barrels a day in the Permian Basin.
Yeah.
And that we started, at like 800,000 or 750,000. So that steep curve, that takes a lot of people. And what we would like to do is we would like to get a lot of those engineers to start thinking about what's going to happen when we peak. And now it's going to take some flooding experience, injection experience that they don't have.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. No, that's fascinating. The idea of attacking the shales, attacking the ROZ, more than just conventional, because that's what it's going to take, because the demand is there. We keep chasing that, and the curve, we don't want it to fall off. And I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to, but you got to get innovative, and you got to, go into those AI files and figure out, that's how we can handle this shale. That's how we can handle this whole horizontal, drilled in all these directions and 1,000 stages, and holy smokes.
We've got a lot of people working on water now too. And, you produce all this water with the oil in the shales. What do we do with all that water? Well, we put it back in the ground somewhere else, and maybe it causes earthquakes if we put it too deep on top of the crust, or maybe we put it too shallow and it finds an old well and finds its way to the surface.
Sure.
And one of the best answers would be to reuse that water somehow, surface reuse it. And a lot of people are working that right now.
Great. That's looking more and more realistic, huh?
I think so.
Wow.
The TSEC, or Texas Council on Environmental Quality, and Railroad Commission are trying to help with that.
That's great to
The
hear.
legislature is too.
Wow. That's great to hear. That's really cool to hear.
A lot of what we talked about is culminating in what I think is a bright future. I really do, for the Permian Basin. There's a lot of things we can do here that other people cannot do. And a lot of it has to do with our reservoirs. A lot of it's our low-value land, the surface land.
Yeah.
And I can hear some ranchers objecting as I speak.
What do you mean? It's ugly. This is the most beautiful land my family's ever owned.
That's right. Well, we can do things like with the water, and
Cool.
And I think maybe we'll pioneer the water.
Wow.
Reuse of surface water or subsurface water.
Wow.
So.
Fascinating. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Troy.
Celebrating nearly a century of scientific exploration, The West Texas Geological Society stands as a testament to the enduring spirit of geoscience. This year, members gathered to share their insights through engaging poster sessions and enlightening technical talks. Participants eagerly exchanged ideas during the panel discussions, exploring the latest discoveries and innovations in geology. Additionally, the core workshop provided hands-on experience, allowing attendees to dive deeper into practical applications of geological principles. If you missed any part of this enriching experience, don't worry. Sign up now to access the recordings available for an extended 6 months. Next year promises to be a landmark occasion as we gear up for the 100-year anniversary of the WTGS. As we reflect on the remarkable journey of the West Texas Geological Society, we look forward to a future filled with promise and innovation in geoscience. Join us in celebrating this milestone as we prepare to honor a century's worth of achievements and continue the quest for knowledge. This is the PBE Podcast Special with Mike Rains and Steve Melzer as we discuss carbon dioxide in the Permian Basin, the geology of this fluid when it goes supercritical and reacts with the rocks,